The massive silver ships appeared in Earth's outer system without warning. They moved with perfect grace through space, their hulls shining like mirrors against the black void. On the mining station Prometheus 7, alarms screamed as the unknown vessels approached. Colonel Sarah Chen stood on the command deck, watching the alien ships through the station's main window. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, but her calm voice cut through the panic around her. "Stand down all weapons," she ordered. "If they wanted us dead, we would be dead already." The lead alien ship was the size of a city. It drifted closer to the mining station, then stopped just outside weapon range. A signal came through on all radio frequencies. "Humans of this system." The voice was strange, like crystal chimes mixed with electronic sounds. "We are the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. We come in peace to meet your species. Prepare to receive our diplomatic party." Colonel Chen straightened her uniform. First contact with an alien race was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries. She had trained for this moment, but her hands still trembled slightly. "This is Colonel Sarah Chen, commanding officer of Prometheus 7, she replied. "You are welcome aboard our station." 2 hours later, the alien shuttle docked with the station. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the Zephyrians emerged. Colonel Chen had expected many things, but not this. The aliens looked like walking crystals, tall and elegant. Their bodies were made of what seemed like living glass, shifting between blue and purple colors. They wore no clothing, but their crystal skin formed natural armor-like patterns. The leader was taller than the others, with sharper edges to his crystal form. When he spoke, his whole body chimed like a bell. "I am Admiral Vex Thara of the Imperial Fleet," he said through a small device that translated his words. "We have watched your species for some time. You are interesting." Colonel Chen led the alien delegation through the station. The miners and workers stared as they passed, but kept working. Chen had ordered everyone to act normal, to show that humans were not easily frightened. "Your station is primitive but functional," Admiral Vex Thara observed. His officers made electronic notes on devices that floated in the air around them. "We are curious about your military capabilities." They reached the station's small museum, a room that showed the history of human space exploration. Colonel Chen had chosen this place carefully for the cultural exchange. "We believe in honoring our past," she explained, gesturing to the displays of old rockets and spacesuits. Admiral Vex Thara seemed bored until they reached the weapons section. Here, his crystal form brightened with interest. "Show us your current military technology," he requested. Colonel Chen activated a holographic display. Images of railguns, plasma rifles, and missile systems appeared in the air. The Zephyrian officers examined each one, making more notes. "Adequate for a young species," Admiral Vex Thara said. His tone was polite but dismissive. "Now, allow us to demonstrate our capabilities." The Admiral nodded to one of his officers, who activated their own device. A three-dimensional image appeared, showing a Zephyrian plasma cannon. "This weapon can destroy a mountain from orbit," the Admiral explained. "It fires concentrated stellar energy at near light speed." The human observers gasped. The alien weapon was far beyond anything Earth had built. "Impressive," Colonel Chen admitted. "We have much to learn." "Indeed," Admiral Vex Thara agreed. "Perhaps we can help your species advance. But first, show us your historical weapons." "We are always curious about how primitive species developed." Colonel Chen led them to the museum's history section. Here, behind glass cases, were weapons from Earth's past. Swords, muskets, cannons, and rifles from different time periods. The Zephyrians examined each case with growing amusement. Their crystal bodies chimed softly, which Chen realized was their version of laughter. They stopped at the final display case. Inside was a restored 1,862 Gatling gun. Its brass and steel gleaming under the lights. Admiral Vex Thara stared at the weapon for a long moment. Then his body erupted in loud, musical chiming. His officers joined in, creating a symphony of crystal laughter. "What is this device?" he asked, still chiming with amusement. It's called a Gatling gun, Colonel Chen explained. It was invented over 500 years ago. Multiple barrels rotate to fire bullets very quickly. Your ancestors pointed metal tubes at enemies and spun them by hand? The Admiral's translator could barely contain his mirth. How wonderfully primitive. Oh, Forder. This sea? It was actually quite advanced for its time, Chen said carefully. It could fire 200 rounds per minute. This caused another wave of crystal laughter. Our smallest sidearm fires 50,000 energy pulses per second, Admiral Vexthara said. And you preserve these ancient toys? How quaint! One of the Zephyrian officers spoke to the Admiral in their own language. More chiming followed. My tactical officer wishes to know why you keep such obsolete weapons, the Admiral translated. Our plasma cannons can vaporize an entire city. Why remember tools that can barely scratch modern armor? Colonel Chen felt her jaw tighten, but maintained diplomatic composure. We honor our history. These weapons helped shape who we are today. Of course, Admiral Vexthara said, though his tone suggested he thought humans were foolishly sentimental. Your primitive past is charming. The tour continued for another hour. The Zephyrians examined human technology with the same attitude one might study insects. Everything was interesting but clearly inferior. As they prepared to leave, Admiral Vexthara placed one crystal hand on Colonel Chen's shoulder. It felt surprisingly warm. Your species shows promise, he said. With proper guidance, you might someday join the galactic community. We will return soon to discuss your planet's future. The alien delegation departed, leaving the humans in stunned silence. Colonel Chen stood alone in the museum, staring at the Gatling gun. The Admiral's mocking laughter still echoed in her mind. Sir, her aide approached. Orders? Chen continued staring at the old weapon. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to prepare for visitors. And Lieutenant? Yes, sir. Have the Engineering Corps review all historical weapon designs. All of them. Sir? I don't understand. Colonel Chen turned away from the display case. Her eyes were hard as steel. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when your enemy doesn't expect them. 3 months passed before the Zephyrian Empire returned to human space. This time, they came with a fleet. Admiral Vexthara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Throne. Through the massive viewing screen, he could see hundreds of Imperial warships spreading across the star system. Each vessel was a work of art, their crystal hulls reflecting starlight like jewels. Report, he commanded his tactical officer. 12 human colonies detected, Admiral. Total population approximately 50 million. Their defensive fleet consists of 47 ships, all using primitive technology. Admiral Vexthara's crystal form brightened with satisfaction. And their weapons? Railguns, plasma rifles, nuclear missiles. Nothing that can penetrate our shields or armor. Our intelligence confirms they have not developed beyond basic energy weapons. The Admiral nodded. This would be easy. Perhaps too easy. The Empire preferred their conquests to provide at least some challenge. Open channels to all human settlements, he ordered. Across the human colonies, every communication device suddenly activated. Admiral Vexthara's imposing crystal form appeared on screens everywhere. Humans, his translated voice echoed through homes, offices, and military bases. I am Admiral Vexthara of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. You have been judged suitable for incorporation into our realm. On Prometheus 7, Colonel Chen watched the broadcast with her senior staff. The mining station had become the unofficial headquarters for human resistance planning. Surrender your weapons and submit to Imperial rule. The Admiral continued. We have studied your primitive armaments and find them laughably inadequate. Resistance will only bring unnecessary suffering. Colonel Chen muted the broadcast and turned to her officers. Status report on Operation Antique? All colonies have received their shipments, sir, her aide reported. The factories on New Montana are working around the clock. Earth Command has approved the full plan. Good. Tell our people to make it look convincing when they surrender. The invasion began 6 hours later. Zephyrian assault shuttles descended on 12 human worlds simultaneously. Their approach was textbook perfect. Ships moving in formation with their energy shields glowing like tiny suns. On the colony world of New Texas, the local defense force met them with everything they had. Plasma cannons fired from hidden bunkers, sending bright energy beams toward the alien ships. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked through the atmosphere. The Zephyrian shields absorbed every attack effortlessly. The energy weapons were deflected harmlessly into space. The missiles exploded against the shields without causing any damage. Commander Torxvel led the ground assault on New Texas. He was younger than Admiral Vexthara, his crystal form sharper and more aggressive in shape. As his transport touched down, he felt almost disappointed. "These humans are even weaker than predicted," he reported to the Admiral. "Their energy weapons cannot scratch our shields." The human defenders fell back quickly, seeming to panic as their best weapons proved useless. Within hours, the Zephyrians had captured the planetary capital. Similar scenes played out across all 12 worlds. Human resistance collapsed wherever it met Imperial forces. The aliens' energy shields deflected everything the humans could throw at them. "Admiral," Torxvel reported from the planet's surface, "New Texas is secured. The humans are surrendering in large numbers." "Excellent," Admiral Vexthara replied. "How many casualties among our forces?" "None, Admiral. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields or armor." This news was repeated from every battlefront. Humanity's most advanced weapons were useless against Zephyrian technology. The Empire had not lost a single soldier, but something bothered Admiral Vexthara. The human resistance had been too weak, too quick to collapse. These were the same species that had preserved ancient weapons in museums. Where was their fighting spirit? On Prometheus 7, Colonel Chen received reports from every colony. Phase 1 of Operation Antique was complete. The aliens now believed human military technology was fully mapped and easily defeated. "Send the signal to all commanders," she ordered. "Begin Phase 2 tonight." Across the human colonies, secret messages passed between resistance cells. The communications were sent using old radio frequencies that the Zephyrians dismissed as too primitive to monitor effectively. In hidden bunkers and abandoned mines, human engineers worked frantically on weapons that would have been familiar to soldiers from centuries past. But these were not museum pieces. The new Gatling guns were built with modern materials. Instead of brass and wood, they used titanium and carbon fiber. Instead of black powder, they used advanced propellants. Instead of lead bullets, they fired depleted uranium rounds manufactured to incredibly precise specifications. "Will it work?" asked Dr. Martinez, the chief engineer on New Montana. "The physics are sound," replied her assistant. "Their shields are calibrated to stop fast-moving projectiles and energy beams. But these bullets are relatively slow and very heavy. The shields shouldn't even recognize them as threats." Dr. Martinez nodded, watching teams of workers assemble the weapons. Each gun could fire 6,000 rounds per minute. Far faster than the original design. The bullets were guided by modern targeting systems but propelled by simple chemical explosions. "It's crazy enough to work," she admitted. On the Crystal Throne, Admiral Vexthara reviewed the invasion reports. Every colony was under Imperial control. Human military forces had been neutralized with embarrassing ease. "Sir," his intelligence officer approached, "we've detected unusual activity in some human settlements. Large amounts of metal are being moved to hidden locations." "What kind of metal?" "Iron, lead, uranium, primitive materials. They appear to be manufacturing something, but our scans cannot determine what." Admiral Vexthara considered this. "Are they building bombs? Chemical weapons?" "Unlikely, sir. The materials are wrong for advanced explosives. Our analysis suggests they are building projectile weapons." "Projectile weapons?" The Admiral's crystal form chimed with amusement. "Like those museum pieces we saw? How desperate they must be. Should we investigate further?" "No," Admiral Vexthara decided. "Let them build their primitive toys. It will make the final surrender more satisfying when they realize even their desperation cannot help them." But deep in the hidden factories, Human workers put the finishing touches on weapons their enemy would never expect. The Gatling guns were ready for war. Colonel Chen stood in the main factory on New Montana, watching the last weapons roll off the production line. These guns looked different from the museum piece Admiral Vex Thara had mocked. They were sleeker, deadlier, and mounted on modern stabilizing systems. "How many do we have?" she asked. 2,000 guns across all colonies, Dr. Martinez reported. Plus ammunition for sustained engagement. Colonel Chen picked up one of the bullets. It was heavier than it looked, made from depleted uranium and shaped for maximum kinetic impact. "Tomorrow, we find out if old wisdom can beat new technology," she said. In space, the Zephyrian fleet maintained its positions, confident in their superiority. They had defeated humanity's best weapons without taking a single casualty. The war was essentially over, but they had forgotten an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest threat comes from what you don't expect. Commander Torxvel led his troops through the narrow canyon on New Montana, with complete confidence. Behind him marched 2,000 of the Empire's finest soldiers, their crystal armor gleaming in the morning sun. For 3 days, the human resistance on this world had been pathetic. A few energy weapons fired from hidden positions, easily deflected by Imperial shields, some explosive devices that barely scratched their armor. The humans were running out of modern weapons and growing desperate. "Sir," his lieutenant reported. "Long-range scans show the human stronghold just ahead. Approximately 500 defenders remain." "Only 500? Torxvel's crystal form chimed with disappointment. This entire planet conquered with so little effort. These humans truly are primitive. The canyon walls rose high on both sides, carved from red rock by ancient water flows. It was the perfect place for an ambush. But Imperial shields made such tactics pointless. No human weapon could penetrate their defenses. "Maintain formation," Torxvel ordered. "We end this resistance today." High above on the canyon rim, Colonel Chen watched through binoculars as the alien army advanced into her trap. Beside her crouched Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion who understood both old and new ways of fighting. 2,000 of them," Rodriguez whispered. "This better work, Colonel." "It will work," Chen replied, though her heart pounded with uncertainty. "Signal all positions. Weapons free in 60 seconds. Along both sides of the canyon, hidden behind carefully constructed barriers, human soldiers waited beside their weapons. The Gatling guns looked strange in this modern war. 6 rotating barrels, ammunition belts feeding from large containers, all mounted on stabilized platforms that hummed with electronic precision. Private Williams pressed his face against the gun sight. He was 19 years old and had never fired anything more primitive than a plasma rifle. The Gatling gun felt ancient and powerful beneath his hands. "Steady," whispered Sergeant Thompson. "Wait for the signal." In the canyon below, the Zephyrian army continued its advance. Their energy shields created a shimmering bubble around each soldier. These shields had protected them against every human weapon so far. They were designed to deflect plasma bolts, laser beams, and high-velocity projectiles, but they had never faced anything like what waited above. Colonel Chen raised her hand. 2,000 alien soldiers were now packed into the narrow space between the canyon walls. "Perfect." Her hand dropped. "Fire." The canyon exploded with the sound of thunder. 50 Gatling guns opened fire simultaneously from concealed positions along both canyon walls. The noise was deafening, a continuous roar that echoed off the rock walls like the voice of an angry god. The bullets were not fast like laser beams or plasma bolts. They moved at only 800 meters per second, slow by modern warfare standards, but there were thousands of them. A continuous stream of depleted uranium death pouring down into the canyon. Commander Torxvel looked up in confusion as the strange sound filled the air. Then he saw the muzzle flashes along the canyon rim, and understood. The humans were using projectile weapons. He almost chimed with laughter. Projectile weapons against Imperial shields? The humans truly were desperate. Then the first bullets hit. The energy shields, calibrated to stop fast-moving threats, barely registered the incoming projectiles. The shield generators calculated the bullets' speed and mass, determined they posed minimal threat, and allowed them to pass through. 6,000 rounds per minute from 50 guns. 300,000 bullets filled the air every minute. A metal storm that blocked out the sun. The first Zephyrian soldier to die never knew what hit him. The depleted uranium bullet passed through his shield like it wasn't there and struck his crystal chest with tremendous force. His body, evolved to resist energy weapons, shattered like glass. Then the massacre began. Commander Torxvel watched in horror as his soldiers fell around him. The bullets punched through their shields without slowing down, then shattered their crystal armor with kinetic impacts their bodies were never designed to withstand. "Shields up!" he screamed into his communicator. "Maximum power!" "Sir!" his tactical officer replied, his voice filled with panic. "The shields are up. The weapons are passing right through them." It was impossible. Imperial shields could stop a nuclear explosion. How could primitive bullets penetrate them? The answer was simple physics. The shields were programmed to stop threats moving faster than 1,000 meters per second. Anything slower was classified as non-threatening debris. The human bullets, moving at only 800 meters per second, were ignored completely. Sergeant Thompson watched through his gun sight as alien soldiers tried to take cover behind rocks. The Gatling guns chewed through stone like paper, sending fragments flying everywhere. "My God," he whispered. "They're falling like wheat before the scythe." Private Williams had stopped thinking about individual targets. He just held down the trigger and swept his gun back and forth, watching the tracers draw lines of death through the alien formation. The depleted uranium bullets were dense and heavy. When they hit the crystal armor, they transferred massive amounts of kinetic energy. The aliens' bodies simply couldn't absorb that kind of impact. Commander Torxvel tried to rally his troops, but the slaughter was too complete. Soldiers who had survived plasma bombardments and energy weapon attacks were being cut down by what looked like ancient technology. "Fall back," he ordered. "All units withdraw." But there was nowhere to go. The humans had chosen their trap well. The canyon walls were too steep to climb quickly, and the only exits were blocked by the continuous fire from above. Some soldiers tried to return fire with their plasma weapons, but their shots went wild as bullets shattered their positions. Others attempted to activate personal force fields, but the electromagnetic systems couldn't track targets moving so slowly. In desperation, Torxvel activated his emergency beacon. "Admiral, Admiral, we need immediate support." On the crystal throne, Admiral Vex Thara received the panicked transmission with disbelief. "Commander, report your status." "We're being slaughtered, sir. The humans have weapons that pierce our shields." "Impossible. Our shields can stop anything they possess." "Sir, they're using projectile weapons, ancient ballistic technology. The shields don't recognize them as threats." Admiral Vex Thara's crystal form went dark with shock. Projectile weapons? Those museum pieces they had laughed at? "How many casualties?" he demanded. 90%, sir. Request immediate evacuation." The Admiral stared at his tactical displays in stunned silence. An entire Imperial regiment, destroyed by weapons that belonged in a museum. In the canyon, the firing finally stopped. Smoke drifted across piles of shattered crystal that had once been proud Imperial soldiers. The red rock was painted with strange alien fluids that served as their blood. Colonel Chen climbed down into the canyon, stepping carefully around the debris. Commander Torxvel lay against a boulder, his crystal form cracked and dim. He was still alive. Barely. "How?" he whispered as Chen approached. "How did primitive weapons penetrate our shields?" Chen knelt beside him, her expression grim but not unkind. "Because you prepared for our future, Commander. But you forgot about our past." The alien's crystal eyes flickered with confusion. "Your shields stop fast threats," Chen explained. "But our bullets were slow. Heavy and slow. Just like bullets have always been. Sometimes the old ways work precisely because nobody expects them anymore." Commander Torxvel's form went completely dark as his life faded away. Colonel Chen stood and activated her radio. "All units. This is Chen. Phase 3 is a go. Deploy the secondary weapons. Across New Montana and the other occupied worlds, Human resistance cells emerged from hiding. They carried weapons that would have been familiar to soldiers from centuries past. Crossbows with modern materials, catapults launching guided projectiles, even slings with smart ammunition. Each weapon exploited the same weakness in alien defenses. The Zephyrian Empire had built their technology to counter modern threats. They had never considered that the greatest danger might come from the distant past. The tide of war was about to turn. Admiral Vex Thara stood frozen on his command bridge, staring at the tactical displays that showed the impossible. Regiment after regiment of Imperial forces marked in red. Destroyed. Dead, killed by weapons that belonged in primitive museums. Sir, his chief technician Mordak approached cautiously. His crystal form was dim with shame. I have analyzed the weapon signatures from the attack. Explain, the Admiral commanded, his voice like breaking glass. The humans used kinetic projectile weapons, simple metal bullets fired by chemical propulsion. Our shields were calibrated to stop plasma, energy beams, and high-velocity projectiles above 1,000 meters per second. And these bullets? 800 meters per second, sir. The shield systems classified them as slow-moving debris and allowed them to pass through completely unimpeded. Admiral Vex Thara's crystal form darkened with rage and humiliation. You're telling me that our most advanced defensive technology was defeated by bullets? Bullets? Yes, sir. It's like being killed by a sharpened stick after surviving a nuclear explosion. The weapons were so primitive that our systems never considered them a threat. The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. Current status of all ground forces? 7 regiments have been eliminated on New Montana alone, sir. Similar attacks are being reported from 3 other worlds. The humans are using various primitive weapons. Our forces are requesting immediate withdrawal. No! Vex Thara slammed his crystal fist against the control panel. The Imperial fleet does not retreat from primitives. Recalibrate all shields to stop slow-moving projectiles. Already in progress, sir, Mordak replied. But there's a problem. What problem? If we adjust the shields to stop slow projectiles, we lose protection against energy weapons. The power requirements are too great to defend against both simultaneously. Admiral Vex Thara realized the terrible truth. The humans had found a gap in Imperial technology that couldn't be easily fixed. Any shield setting that stopped bullets would leave them vulnerable to plasma weapons. Any setting that stopped energy weapons would let bullets through. What about our armor? Crystal Matrix armor is designed to dissipate energy attacks, Mordak explained. It's actually vulnerable to kinetic impact. The bullets shatter our soldiers' bodies. The Admiral felt something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. Not fear of death in battle, but fear of being defeated by inferiors. The Empire's reputation was built on technological supremacy. How could they explain being beaten by museum pieces? Send new orders to all ground commanders, he decided. Modify tactics to account for kinetic weapons. Use terrain for cover. Deploy energy barriers. But the humans were already one step ahead. On the colony world of New Darwin, Captain Lisa Park crouched in the ruins of a bombed-out factory. Her team had just finished setting up their latest surprise for the Imperial forces. Trebuchet in position, she reported over her radio. The weapon beside her looked like something from medieval times, but built with modern materials. The arm was carbon fiber, the counterweight was dense tungsten, and the projectile was a guided smart bomb disguised as a simple rock. This is insane, muttered Corporal Davis, checking the weapon's targeting system. We're using catapults against starships. Insane enough to work, Captain Park replied. Their AI tactical systems are programmed to counter plasma cannons and missile batteries. How do you calculate defense patterns against a trebuchet? AI. Respik, Kami. The Zephyrian forces advancing on their position had recalibrated their shields to stop slow-moving projectiles. But this created new vulnerabilities. The shields now consumed massive amounts of power, reducing their mobility and communication range. Target acquired, Davis reported. Zephyrian command vehicle. Range 800 meters. Fire. The trebuchet released with a deep thrum. The tungsten projectile arced high through the air, its smart guidance system activating at the peak of its flight. To the Zephyrian sensors, It looked like a piece of debris from a damaged building. The guided stone struck the command vehicle with devastating force. The kinetic impact crushed the vehicle's armor and disabled its systems. The commander inside never understood what had happened. Similar scenes played out across multiple worlds. On New Texas, human fighters used crossbows, firing titanium bolts that pierced alien armor with medieval efficiency. On Kepler-4, resistance cells deployed slings with smart ammunition that confused Imperial targeting systems. Each weapon exploited different weaknesses in advanced alien technology. The crossbow bolts were too thin for sensors to track reliably. The sling stones moved in unpredictable arcs that computer systems couldn't calculate. Even simple spears, when thrown by humans in mechanical suits, became armor-piercing weapons. Admiral Vex's Thara received report after report of impossible defeats. His advanced soldiers were being killed by weapons that predated spaceflight. The Empire's technological edge was becoming meaningless. "Sir," his communications officer approached nervously. "We're receiving a transmission from the human commander." "Put it through." Colonel Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She sat calmly behind a desk, as if this were a normal diplomatic meeting instead of a war. "Admiral Vex Thara," she said politely, "I believe we need to talk. You attack my forces with primitive weapons, and then request negotiations?" The Admiral's crystal form flashed with anger. "Your treachery will not be forgotten." "Treachery?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "You invaded our worlds, Admiral. We're simply defending ourselves with the tools we have." "Museum pieces, ancient relics, tools that work," Chen corrected. "Your technology is impressive, but it's designed to fight enemies who think like you do. We think differently." Admiral Vex Thara leaned forward in his command chair. "What do you want? Human? Withdraw your forces from our colonies. Return to your own space. We'll call it even for the soldiers you've already lost. You think your primitive weapons make you our equals?" Vex Thara laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "We have orbital bombardment platforms. We can destroy your cities from space." "Yes, you can," Chen agreed. "And then what? You'll rule over radioactive ruins inhabited by dead humans. That doesn't seem very profitable for an empire." The Admiral paused. She was right. The Empire preferred to conquer useful worlds, not destroy them. "Besides," Chen continued, "orbital bombardment requires you to lower your shields. We have surface-to-space weapons you might find." "More ancient weapons?" "Some of our old rocket designs are quite effective when built with modern materials. Chemical rockets are slow enough to pass through your shields, but they carry very large warheads." Admiral Vex Thara felt the trap closing around him. Every advantage his technology provided created a new vulnerability the humans could exploit. Their primitive weapons were like a virus attacking his army's immune system. "You cannot defeat the entire Imperial fleet with museum pieces," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not," Chen admitted. "But we can make conquest too expensive to be worthwhile. How many soldiers are you willing to lose to weapons that shouldn't work?" On the bridge of the Crystal Throne, Admiral Vex Thara's officers waited in tense silence. The tactical displays showed their ground forces pinned down by weapons from humanity's dark ages. Their advanced shields and armor, useless against simple metal and wood. "Sir," Mordak spoke quietly, "perhaps we should consider the human offer." "Consider retreat?" Vex Thara's voice was sharp. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitives." "But sir, these aren't primitives. They're using our own sophistication against us. Their weapons are simple, but their strategy is complex. They understand our technology better than we understand theirs." Admiral Vex Thara looked at the tactical displays again. Red icons everywhere, marking the destruction of forces that should have been invincible, defeated by weapons that belonged in museums. For the first time in his career, he began to doubt Imperial superiority. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The humans had proven that advance didn't always mean better, and that sometimes the oldest solutions were the most unexpected ones. Admiral Vex Thara made his final decision as he watched another regiment fall to human crossbows. The ground war was lost. His technologically superior forces could not adapt fast enough to counter weapons that exploited every gap in their defenses. "Recall all ground forces," he commanded. "We settle this from orbit." "Sir?" his tactical officer questioned. "Prepare for orbital bombardment. If we cannot conquer these worlds intact, we will make examples of them. The Empire's reputation must be preserved." The Crystal Throne and its escort ships moved into bombardment positions above New Montana. Their massive plasma cannons could reduce cities to molten glass from space. It would be wasteful, but the Empire's honor demanded victory. But Admiral Vexthera had forgotten something important. He had been so focused on the ground war that he overlooked what the humans might have prepared for space combat. On the surface of New Montana, Colonel Chen stood in the command center of humanity's most ambitious project. Through reinforced windows, she could see the massive structure rising from the mountain peak above them. "Orbital defense platform is fully operational," Dr. Martinez reported. "All systems show green." "All systems show green." Chen looked up at the weapon that would decide humanity's fate. It was enormous. A space-based version of the same technology that had saved them on the ground. 6 rotating barrels, each one 50 feet long, designed to fire tungsten penetrator rods at incredible rates. The largest Gatling gun ever built. "Power levels?" Chen asked. "Full charge. The fusion reactor is running perfectly. We can maintain fire for 30 minutes continuous." "Ammunition?" 10,000 tungsten rods, each one guided by its own targeting system, dense enough to punch through capital ship armor. Colonel Chen activated her communicator. "All orbital platforms. This is New Montana Command. Prepare for engagement." Across the human colonies, similar weapons emerged from hidden silos and mountain peaks. 27 orbital Gatling guns, all aimed at the Zephyrian fleet. On the Crystal Throne, Admiral Vexthera prepared to give the bombardment order. His main guns were charged and ready to turn human cities into ruins. "Sir," his sensor officer called out urgently. "I'm detecting large structures emerging from the planetary surface." "Missile silos?" "Unknown, sir. They're rotating. Multiple barrels. Very large caliber." Admiral Vexthera felt a chill of recognition. "Display visual feed." The main screen showed one of the human orbital weapons spinning up to full speed. 6 massive barrels rotating faster and faster, until they became a blur of motion. "It's another Gatling gun," he whispered. "A giant one." "Sir, should we fire on the installations?" "Yes, all weapons, target those platforms." But the humans had learned their enemy well. The orbital platforms were protected by the same shield technology the Empire used, captured from disabled ships and reverse-engineered. The Zephyrian plasma cannons struck harmlessly against their own defensive systems. "Shields holding," Dr. Martinez reported calmly. "Beginning firing sequence." Colonel Chen gave the order she had waited months to give. "All platforms. Fire at will." The orbital Gatling guns opened fire simultaneously. The tungsten rods were not fast by modern space combat standards. They moved at only 1,200 meters per second. Slow enough to pass through Zephyrian shields without triggering defensive protocols. But they were incredibly dense and precisely guided. Admiral Vexthera watched in horror as his flagship came under attack from weapons that should have been obsolete for 1,000 years. The tungsten rods struck the Crystal Throne like a metal storm, each impact sending shockwaves through the ship's structure. "Shields," he commanded. "Shields are up, sir. The projectiles are passing right through." The same weakness that had doomed his ground forces now threatened his fleet. The rods were moving too slowly to be classified as threats by the shield systems. "Emergency power to shields. Maximum deflection. Sir, if we recalibrate the shields to stop slow projectiles, we'll be vulnerable to the planetary defense cannons." Admiral Vexthera realized the trap. The humans had energy weapons too, hidden on the planetary surface. If he adjusted shields to stop the Gatling guns, the plasma cannons would destroy him. If he kept shields configured for energy weapons, the Gatling guns would tear his fleet apart. The tungsten rods punched through the Crystal Throne's hull with devastating effect. Each rod carried enormous kinetic energy, designed to penetrate the heaviest armor. The ship's crystal structure began to crack and splinter under the continuous impacts. "Damage report," Vexthera demanded. "Hull breaches on 17 decks. Life support failing in sections 4 through 9. Main engines at 60%. Around the flagship, other Imperial vessels suffered similar damage. The human weapons fired with mechanical precision, each gun delivering 6,000 rounds per minute of armor-piercing death. All ships, emergency withdrawal," Admiral Vexthara ordered. "Fall back, beyond weapon range," but the orbital platforms had been positioned carefully. Their range covered all the approaches to the human worlds. There was nowhere to retreat except into deep space. The Imperial fleet limped away from the planets, their crystal hulls scarred and broken. Ships designed to survive quantum torpedo attacks had been crippled by weapons that used the same technology as antique firearms. Admiral Vexthara slumped in his command chair, his crystal form dim with defeat and shame. His invincible fleet had been beaten by museum pieces. "Sir," his communications officer approached hesitantly, "the human commander is requesting to speak with you." Vexthara straightened slowly. "Put her through." Colonel Chen appeared on the screen again. Behind her, through the command center windows, one of the orbital Gatling guns was still spinning, ready to fire again. "Admiral," she said simply, "are you ready to discuss terms?" "Terms?" Vexthara's voice was hollow. "You wish to negotiate our surrender?" "I wish to negotiate peace," Chen corrected. "Your empire is vast and powerful. We're just one small cluster of worlds, but we've proven that conquest comes with a price. What do you want? Withdraw your forces from human space. Recognize our independence. Trade with us instead of conquering us." Admiral Vexthara looked at his tactical displays. Half his fleet was damaged. Thousands of his soldiers were dead. And all because he had underestimated weapons from humanity's past. "Why spare us?" he asked. "You have us at your mercy." Colonel Chen smiled slightly. "Because we measured your weapons by our standards and found them impressive. We failed to understand that different doesn't mean we must be enemies." The Admiral recognized his own words from their first meeting, turned back on him. The humans had learned to respect Imperial technology even while defeating it. "You prepared for our future, Admiral," Chen continued. "But you forgot about our past. We hope you'll remember both in the future." Admiral Vexthara made a decision that would change the Empire forever. "I accept your terms, Colonel. The Imperial fleet will withdraw from human space." "Thank you," Chen replied. "Perhaps next time you visit, it can be as friends rather than conquerors." The transmission ended. Admiral Vexthara sat in silence for a long moment, then turned to his surviving officers. "Signal the Imperial Council," he ordered. "Tell them we have encountered a species that must be approached with caution and respect." "What shall we say about the defeat, sir?" Vexthara thought about the Gatling guns, ancient weapons that had destroyed his modern army. "Tell them we learned that advancement isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes wisdom lies in remembering what came before." The Imperial fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving human space in peace. Behind them, the orbital Gatling guns slowly spun down to rest, their job complete. In the museum on Prometheus 7, workers installed a new plaque beside the antique Gatling gun. It read, "Advanced technology is indistinguishable from forgotten simplicity. Human Military Doctrine, 2387. Colonel Chen stood before the display case, remembering Admiral Vexthara's mocking laughter from months before. The same weapon he had dismissed as primitive had saved humanity from conquest. "Ma'am?" Her aide approached. "The Zephyrian ambassador has arrived for the trade negotiations." Chen smiled. "Send him to the museum first. I want him to see our history before we discuss our future." The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the most unexpected ones, and humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology, but through the wisdom to remember that simple tools, used cleverly, could defeat any enemy. The war was over. The real victory had just begun.